Moin Leute, herzlich willkommen zu einem Review und zwar Confirmed Episode 7 Sneak Peek The Amazing Digital Circus. Episode 7 Vorschau. Es gibt eine von Amazing Digital Circus Episode 7 eine Vorschau. Das Video ist von Internet Inferno. Lasst ein Abo da, lasst ein Like da.
Not only were we given news towards an official Episode 7 sneak peek from Glitch, but we were also given 2 early previews for this next episode that changed everything we thought we knew about the digital circus, which started with our first preview teasing a whole new location we're expecting to see here, as on top of the show's creator Gooseworks confirming how these new locations in the circus for the future episodes would include the insides of each of the circus members' rooms. We were also shown a behind-the-scenes room model that many people missed. Turns out, along with the release of the circus's earlier blueprints, Gooseworks ended up revealing a secret location that we're still expecting to see in one of the upcoming episodes. The crow's nest area at the top of the circus tent staircase that Gooseworks put in parentheses might also have a little cafe inside. But how do we know for sure that this location would pop up in the future? Well, besides this cafe being one of the only locations we're told about behind the scenes that we still haven't had the chance to see in any of the previous episodes, we know how this idea of a digital circus themed cafe was something Glitch was already very supportive of. As behind the scenes, it turns out the digital circus merchandise team had actually set up entire promotions based on this same exact topic, setting up an actual cafe to go along with episode 4, the fast food adventure with different digital circus themed foods. And even though this original cafe was more connected to episode 4 in the past, you see how the digital circus is no stranger to repeating similar adventures, as not only did Kane set up the Mildenhall mystery adventure shortly before trying to get the circus members to do another similar in the NPC out of bounds area for an adventure involving a bunch of reused NPCs that came from past adventures, including the ghost Martha Mildenhall and even Orbsman, who's originally from the same fast food related adventure as episode 4 in the first place, the one connected to the cafe that we still very likely might see pop up in the future. But our next preview finally told us what Jax's secret ability was going to be, as we were shown in episode 3 how every character had something different happen to them after holding their breath, but that Jax's ability was actually a secret, something he didn't want anyone to know about. But behind the scenes, we know that Jax's special ability will likely be revealed in the future episodes to be the power to partially abstract himself, which, yes, does sound crazy, but it turns out there was actually a lot more evidence for this idea than you might think. We were told for starters how the show's creator Gooseworks already confirmed behind the scenes that one of the future episodes would reveal to us what it's really like for these characters to abstract. As with Jax having a bit of a meltdown in the bathroom in episode 6, we still never got to see the full abstraction process start to happen, meaning there'd still need to be a circus member in the future that at least partially abstracts in order to reveal what it's really like. And in terms of Jax being the one partially abstracting,
Oh mein Gott, nein, Digga, yo.
that he's the one character likely to go through this process in the future episodes, because he was already shown to have a dark secret behind the scenes. The show's creator revealed that Jax's secret was the fact he does something in his free time that we don't want to know about. He partially abstracts. We know because months ago when Glitch revealed all the secret rooms for each of the characters, something they told us we get to see in one of the upcoming episodes, they specifically designed Jax's room to be different, only showing us the outside of the door, which was actually surrounded with bits and pieces of the void that we saw from episode 1. We already know that this void so Jax's entire room secretly being part of this void means just by being inside this room time and time again, as that's where Jax is supposed to be during his free time, Jax has already learned to face this process of abstraction head on. We know when a character abstracts in the first place, it means they lose touch with their sense of self and reality within the digital world, causing them to break down and change. And the void connects to this detachment because it's a space Kane describes as literal nothingness, where a circus member can easily lose their mind. But the fact Jax keeps returning from this strange sort of void area unchanged means he's likely developed a coping mechanism for this feeling that allows him to control this abstracted side of himself, which perfectly explains how this sort of close call he has in episode 6 is basically nothing to him. as he's able to shrug it off at the end, saying how he looks stupid. But why would Jax even have this ability to partially abstract himself in the first place? And how do we know for sure? Well, we've seen in some of the recent episodes that Jax has a general fear of little pod-like shapes, as he tells us in episode 6 that this is the reason he's afraid of corn, likely meaning that this scene was teasing Jax's fear of abstraction as well, as these same little pod-like shapes he's afraid of also perfectly match up with the appearance of abstracted characters. And Jax having this fear would explain why he'd want to put himself through the proper conditioning in order to avoid the full process of abstraction at all costs. Why he's been building up this coping mechanism to abstraction with his room literally having bits and pieces of the void in it for some reason, in order to get himself to the point we see him at in episode 6. Able to fight this process of abstraction by calming himself down and controlling the situation. But getting to our official sneak peek, it turns out Glitch just made a post not only cluing us into a more specific release date for episode 7, but also showing us when to expect an early preview for the episode. As it turns out, they started this important post off relatively normal, explaining their upcoming dates for different in-person events, before we were told about what to expect for the digital circus, as the video they made goes on to explain how the second in-person event being held by Glitch on October 9th is going to be featuring new sneak peeks, which we know is going to be where episode 7 gets involved, as this in-person event episode preview process is exactly how we were given early leaks recently before episode 6. Meaning we're likely expecting to get another random 1-minute clip of episode 7 on this date in October, just like what we received the first time around, which is actually a lot more important towards revealing episode 7's actual release date than you might think, as we've seen in the case of the last episode sneak peek, the one for episode 6, how it was released on July 26th before the full next episode was released on August 15th, giving us around a 2-week gap between the sneak peek and the actual episode release, as by the time the episode is worked on enough behind the scenes for them to have a full 1-minute clip prepared, it makes sense to assume that the rest of the episode doesn't need much more work put into it for it to be ready to come out. Meaning what we're told about the release date in this case, for episode 7, makes perfect sense with what we've been expecting. An October release date, as after adding the expected 2-week gap from the sneak peek release date in this case, we'd be left with an episode release date of around October 28th, which we were told along with amazing news for not only just the Amazing Digital Circus, but every other show Glitch has been working on as well. As it turns out, there was a huge update behind the scenes that I'm able to fully put together for you into this video right here. So for what we know about the situation, make sure to check it out.
So, damit das war's, Leute, für dieses Video. Ich bin wieder ziemlich gespannt, wann Episode 7 auf jeden Fall rauskommt. Und ja, damit das so, ciao.